Greetings, loyal subjects of the Imperium of Man. I am Librarian Elias of the Adeptus Astartes. I am creating a series of recordings with the intent of educating the general populace of the dangers of the galaxy. All of this information comes from the Lexicanum provided to me by the Adeptus Mechanicus. I will be reading verbatim from their archives. This recording will cover one of the many foes the Imperium has, a space marine known as Lucius the Eternal. Lucius the Eternal of the Emperor's Children is the champion of Slaanesh, also known as the Soul Thief, Fulgrim's champion, and the scion of Chemos. Lucius fought amongst members of Squad Nasike during the reconquest of Isfan III, who went on to become his bodyguard and eventually his warband. During his youth on Chemos, Lucius became noted for his talent and ability to master nearly anything. He quickly gained sponsors among the elites of the planet, and he gravitated towards the art of war, most notably swordsmanship. He displayed perhaps sadistic tendencies early on, killing individuals he claimed were beggars and brigands that had attacked him first. He proved to be a poor teacher, often scarring his pupils or cutting off an eye or finger in an accident. When he took part in an annual swordsmanship contest on Chemos, Lucius garnered the attention of a hulking stranger in the shadows. He dueled against a famed champion twice his age, and after suffering a blow to his stomach, took apart his opponent piece by piece. As he was about to be attacked by the champion's supporters and disciples, Lucius was saved by a sergeant of the Emperor's Children, who inducted him into the Legion. During the Great Crusade, Lucius was the captain of the 13th Company of the 3rd Legion. His skill with a blade quickly became legendary amongst the Legion. Other members of the Emperor's Children considered Lucius to be proud, foolhardy, and sometimes a little childish. Even his closest friend in the Legion, Saul Tarvitz, was wary of him. It is reported that he was never bested in swordplay. The only duel he is known to have lost was against Captain Gaviel Loken of the Lunar Wolves, who brought him down with a punch. In a later rematch, however, Lucius was victorious. Lucius would later take part on the War on Murder, where he fought with an ornate antique sword, forged in the smithies of the Urals by artisans of the Tarawat clan, a true relic of the Unification Wars. In the betrayal of Isfan III, Lucius found himself betrayed by the Legion he loved, and found himself fighting alongside Saul Tarvitz with the loyalist marines of the Emperor's Children. As it became apparent that it was Tarvitz who was the hero of the hour for the loyalists, Lucius grew jealous and betrayed his erstwhile friend to the traitor legions. As his hunger for glory overcame his already dwindled sense of honor, Lucius did this by attacking a group of 30 loyal marines who were assigned to him. He, however, did not do this alone. While fighting his own men, Captain Solomon Demeter of the 2nd Company of the Emperor's Children arrived at Lucius's position. Lucius cried out for help, and thus duped Captain Demeter to think the Marines Lucius was fighting were traitors. Unfortunately, Demeter realized this after the last of the 30 Marines were killed. Lucius and Demeter, who had a mutual dislike towards each other, became locked in combat, during which Lucius killed the already wounded Demeter. After his betrayal of the Loyalist, his combat skills were recognized, and he quickly became the leader of Fulgrim's bodyguard of Assault Marines, gaining the rank of Lord Commander. Lucius later was troubled by dreams that made him convinced that Fulgrim was possessed by some entity, and led other top-ranking members of the Legion, including Fabius Bile and Marius Varosian, in the capture of the Primarch. After ineffective torture and an attempted exorcism, Lucius came to understand that while Fulgrim had been possessed, he had gotten rid of the demon himself. Lucius followed his Primarch on a quest for the Angel Exterminatus. the name of an immeasurably powerful creature of Eldari mythology, and use its power to wipe out the Loyalist Marines. Lucius twice crossed swords with Nikona Sherokin of the Raven Guard. The first time, Lucius came away with a scar on one cheek. The second time, on the planet of Idris, Sherokin gave him a matching scar, and then killed him with 2 blades through his heart. Lucius died on Idris, and awakened in Fabius's Apothecarian, amazed to be alive. After the events on Idris, Lucius set out alone in search of a worthy challenge. He crossed paths with Hathor Mat of the Thousand Sons, who he despised for being so alike to a younger Lucius. Ma'at told Lucius of Sanacht, a peerless swordsman of the Thousand Sons, and his tower on the planet of sorcerers. Lucius, still enraged by his defeat at the hands of Nikona Sherokin, set out to challenge Sanakat to a duel. Learning that none of the Thousand Sons' Corvidae seers were able to prophesy Sanakat's eventual defeat in combat, only served to feed Lucius's ambition. After a long-winded journey, Lucius reached Sanakt's tower. The swordsman welcomed Lucius's challenge. Sure of his own victory, Sanakt asked Lucius if he was eager to die, to which Lucius replied, he has already experienced death once. Sanakt accurately claims that Lucius sought him out to understand why he came back from the dead. In the unfolding duel, Sanakt was always a step ahead of Lucius, taunting his natural ability as being inferior to his own learned skill. Lucius was surprised to receive tips on his own technique from the Thousand Sons swordsman, refused the notion of requiring help. As Lucius unleashed his full fury upon Sanakt, he eventually manages to overwhelm the Thousand Son, disarming him. Before he could deal the killing blow, however, Ozek Araman steps in to halt Lucius's blade with a psychic barrier, stating that he would shield Sanakt, even though the Thousand Son himself would not have, stating he would soon have need for his brother. Lucius then accompanied Araman on his quest to retrieve the Iron Oculus, a device that was set to keep Kairos Fadeweaver imprisoned within, for the sole purpose of waiting for an opportunity to battle Sanakt. Lacking a proper moment, he stayed part of Araman's group during the subsequent search for the Shards of Magnus, his facial scars healed by Hathor Mat. Lucius was part of the Thousand Sons search for the Shards of Magnus on Committee Sona, and came to battle Yasu Nagasena, a human agent of Malkador the Sigillite during the Horus Heresy. Lucius was able to best the skilled but non-augmented swordsmen and casually threw them from a causeway, but the humans survived. Afterwards, Lucius continued to accompany Araman's cabal, falling under the sway of the demon inside the Iron Oculus, and manipulating Hathor Mat into changing the Book of Magnus at the creature's behest. On Nikea, the Thousand Sons and their Imperial enemies both became trapped within a crystal labyrinth summoned by the possessed Lemuel Gemoan, a human that went on to become a founding member of the Inquisition. Inside the labyrinth, Lucius was confronted by the forms of Sanakt, Gavio Lukin, and Nikona Sherokin, defeating them all but becoming enraged when he saw a reflection of his previous uncorrupted self. Lucius was then swallowed by the crystal maze. However, Lucius was able to escape. When Fulgrim was forced by Lorgar to rejoin the traitor war effort, the Primat let out a great cry across the warp, ordering the Emperor's children to return to his side in preparation for the Siege of Terra. Lucius was seen hearing the call on the planet Netus, surrounded by scattered limbs. After the events of the heresy, Lucius continued to hone and better his combat skills after the Emperor's children began to worship Slanesh. Fulgrim organized gladiatorial games on their new home planet whenever the Legion was unable to vent its need for the pleasure of the kill on other worlds, and Lucius was undefeated in these. He was considered an unstoppable force until he fought the Lord Commander Sirius. Lucius died, and his death was an experience of such transcendent pleasure that Slanesh itself took notice. They cannot let such a promising marine slip away. In the following days, Sirius began to change. Lines began to appear over his skin, and his hair started to fall out. Lucius was back in the world of the living, and all that remained of Sirius was a screaming face on the warped artificer armor. This has happened many times since then. Whenever his killer even takes the tiniest moment of enthusiasm, pleasure, or satisfaction from besting Lucius, they will begin to change into him and become just another swirling face, a memory. In the armor in which Lucius is clad, not even the mechanical Necrons are immune from this curse, as the phasing sword has learned. After every death, Lucius is reborn again, as arrogant and maniacal as ever, and immediately looking for a new challenge to fight. After the Battle of Thessalia, in which the Primarch Guilliman assembled a fleet composed of his Ultramarines chapter, as well as 6 of its successor chapters, began to hunt down Fulgrim. However, Fulgrim left his legion to its fate and retired on a demon world called Calax. Many Emperor's children saw this as a rejection by their Primarch, though Lucius did not. As Fulgrim was gone, a leadership struggle erupted in the Legion, with Lucius, Eidolon, and Fabius emerging as the leaders of the most prominent factions. Lucius was involved in the Legion Wars and fought in the Battle of Scalathrax, the battle often considered the last final action of the World Eaters chapter. As a unified legion, though Lucius's influence among the Emperor's children ultimately diminished. As time wore on, Lucius was reduced to a leader of a small warband dubbed the Cohorts Nasicae, after his old bodyguard. Regardless, Lucius remained infamous and renowned amongst Chaos followers, and continued to operate as Fulgrim's champion. At one point, the Primarch employed Lucius to kill a Fulgrim clone created by Fabius Bile. Through the course of thousands of years, Lucius hunted down and eliminated a lot of great duelists. He defeated the Emperor's champion of the Black Templars at Velfate, the Dark Eldar Archon of Vraesk, and the cursed Dark Eldar city of Shadum, as well as killing the Orc War boss Two Claws at Octarius Sigma. After a series of reversals had reduced the Cohorts Nasicae to about 20 Space Marines, Lucius was forced to cooperate with Fabius to replenish his warband. In the process, Lucius was able to merge his force into a greater warband known as the Faultless. Ultimately, Lucius became part of Eidolon's Phoenix Conclave on the planet of Harmony. Lucius would later appear at the head of an army of Emperor's children during the 13th Black Crusade of Abaddon the Despoiler, inflicting untold suffering on the imperial world of Belisar. He was also a commander in the Spear-Tip Alliance, a coalition of Chaos and Xenos forces during the fall of Medusa 5. Lucius's appearance is standout even amongst most Chaos Marines. The scarring on his face is self-inflicted. At one point, Lucius was considered a truly handsome man, but he resented being called too pretty by some of his fellow Marines. His perfect features were forever marred after the sparring match with Loken, as the Lunar Wolf's punch had also broken his nose, and, much to his fury, it had refused to set properly, despite the attentions of the Legion's apothecaries. Sometime before Isvan III, Lucius received a pair of scars across his cheeks from Remembrancer Serena de Angelis, a painter in the 20th Expedition Fleet who had already been corrupted by Chaos. To remind him of Loken's insults to his perfection, Lucius subsequently marked himself with more scars to commemorate his victories, eventually creating an intricate network of scars, distorting and deforming his features. Lucius, like other named Space Marines, are armed with Wargear unique to themselves. Lucius himself is armed with a Lash of Torment, a demon-infested whip, as well as the ornate sword known as the Blade of the Lair, the very sword that corrupted Fulgrim to Slaanesh. Before taking up the blade of layer, Lucius was known to treat his weapons callously and wielded a master-crafted sword simply known as 19. Lucius's armor of shrieking souls is powered by the thousands of souls now trapped in it. It offers him unnatural protection and allows him to discharge the cacophony generated by the tormented souls as a devastating sonic attack. To further augment his superhuman abilities, Lucius carries a combat stimulant rack on his back, designed by the Dark Elder. He won the device after emerging as champion in the gladiatorial arenas of Kamara. In battle, the stim rack will inject him with combat drugs. This concludes the information regarding Lucius. More in-depth information regarding him will be recorded at a later date. This is Librarian Elias, signing